Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Anthony Broom and Chris Ballas on Thursday, September 25th, heading into an idle weekend for Michigan, but an unbelievable slate of college football. We'll make our picks for Week 5 at the end of the show. We will also break down Bryce Underwood, what his start has been like so far. We'll talk about what needs to improve coming out of the bye. Michigan basketball recruiting with a couple new commits over the last week or so. And I'm sure we'll get into plenty more here on the show. If you're excited for this weekend of college football, if you are happy with Michigan's win last weekend, give us a like here on the video. If you're watching on the YouTube version, hit the subscribe button as well. Get all the latest from our channel on YouTube. And head to the Wolverine.com for all of your Michigan football, basketball, recruiting, transfer portal, NIL coverage. You can use the promo code UM1 right now for 2 months of access for just $1. So 2 months from right now, you'll be in there for 50 cents a month, and that will get you into Ohio State week at just $1. So make sure to take advantage of that right now over at thewolverine.com. And, man, this is about as good of a sports weekend that you could have. Kind of a perfect time for a bye between college football and Ryder Cup, gentlemen.
I'm so excited. I can't believe it. Ryder Cup is awesome. I don't care what anybody says. And then the matchups, guys, going to have a couple TVs going at least for each time slot, right? There are 2 huge games in each time slot. So you got to have 2 games going, 2 TVs going for those at all times. So I can't wait to see. This is really the weekend we learn a lot, in my opinion, about a lot of these teams. So it's going to be great. USC, Illinois. What is that, a noon game, I think? Yep. And Penn State, Oregon is a night game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, I mean, and Ohio State, it was at Washington. So, man, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. I used to dislike bye weeks, but now I love them just because we don't get enough opportunity to watch enough other college football games when we are up in the press box. And as much as I love watching Michigan football and covering it, I love watching other games too. Can't wait to see some of these other teams in action, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have currently have a streaming provider that sponsors us, so I can say this. This is a great weekend for the YouTube TV multi-view. That'll be getting a bit of a workout on my end. Super excited for the slate. Super excited to just kind of get a look around the Big Ten. I think there are some, huge showdown games this weekend. USC, Illinois. You've got Oregon at Penn State. You've got Ohio State at Washington, which I've been saying all offseason. I think that could be one of the best games of the early part of the season. So super excited for that. I think it's a good opportunity for Michigan to, obviously, Sherrone Moore's out of the penalty box now. You've got the opportunity to get some guys healthy heading into next week where, it's another – looking like you will probably have a team you should pummel in Wisconsin and then another road game coming after that. So a lot to look forward to this weekend, but also the next few weeks as well.
No doubt. Let's get into it and talk some Michigan football here on the bye and a third way through the regular season. I think a decent time to take a look at what Michigan's freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood, has done so far this year. An interesting start, I would say, because you have 2 really tough environments that you played in. Couldn't be, tested really much more, considering when you look back at, especially recent Michigan schedules. You used to play Notre Dame before that, but so you'd have some big showdown. But in the month of September, including a month where you have a bye, you go at Oklahoma, you go at Nebraska. So those are tough. You have a couple home games against group of 5 teams as well. He's completed 56.9% of his passes. It's 58 of 102, 733 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 fumble on a scramble there against Nebraska. 7.2 yards per attempt. That's 14th in the Big Ten right now. Actually ahead of Drew Aller at 7.1. He's been off to kind of a weird start to his own season here, heading into his big game against Oregon. But 22 carries, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns, taken 4 sacks, and still averaging over 7 yards a carry. The biggest thing is kind of almost what the cliche is, in my opinion, the cliche all offseason that we kept getting from coaches and teammates, that he's mature beyond his years, the poise, the maturity is there. That actually is what stands out the most to me through these games. outside of just the talent, the perfect throws on some passes. They're not all perfect, but he has the ability to make, a lot of throws that other guys around the country can't. So I think it's been a really good start for him and a lot to build on. And you can see where the potential is going to go with this.
Yeah, and the accuracy is ridiculous. And let's be honest, he's 104th in the country in passing efficiency, I think it is. And it would be much higher than that if his receivers could catch the damn ball. I think he's had at least 10 to 15 drops, if I'm not mistaken. I know of 10 at least. And I think there are some other ones too that could have been caught. I don't know if they called Channing Goodwin's a drop in the end zone on a beautifully thrown ball against Nebraska. He should have caught that pass. Don't care what anybody says. So to me, he's even better than the numbers have shown. And you can see the talent, guys, out there. It is hard to win at Nebraska with any quarterback, let alone a freshman quarterback. And I understand that Nebraska's defense isn't all that. I think they're probably a little overrated, and we're overrated going in. But the poise that he showed there, the speed on the draw play, which we knew was there, was fantastic. He knows where to go with the ball. I really like this kid. This kid is going to be the best quarterback in Michigan history by the time it's all said and done, and he's on the way. So I think they're going to continue to find ways to employ him in the running game. And they've got to have, when Hogan Hansen comes back too, when he has his full complement of receivers, guys that can actually catch the ball, even though Hogan Hansen is a tight end, I think you're going to see them use him like they did Colston Loveland at times. But to me, then we will see a little bit more of Bryce Underwood as well. So I love what he brings to the table, love his maturity on the field. And really his decision-making. So it's been a pleasure to cover this guy. I can't believe that we get to do it, hopefully for 2.5 more years.
He's been really good. And I think that on a team that had a lot of question marks coming into the season, including one of them being, for as good as we think Bryce Underwood is and was going to be, you're still starting a true freshman quarterback who turned 18, 10 days before the season started? To me, he's one of their most known commodities at this point. I think the ball placement has been really good. I think that the decision-making has been crisp. Michigan's done a fairly good job protecting him, at least in terms of only 4 sacks so far this year, 27 pressures, 12 of them came in that Oklahoma game. Pro Football Focus only has him at 1 big-time throw, which they call a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and or into a tighter window. I would disagree with that. I think he's had more than a few of those so far this year. The one that they did chart was that pass along the sideline to Hogan Hansen in the Central Michigan game. 4 turnover-worthy plays. Of course, he had the pick against CMU, just kind of a heat check throw down the field. But overall, you just look at a guy who has a command. He does everything he's asked to do right now. I think he does it extremely well. I think he's very crisp with, some of the run fakes on the play action or the RPOs. I think that the last few weeks, we've seen him quick to kind of get on his horse and make a play with his legs, which is something that we didn't see in those first few weeks. And some of it may have been how they decided to call the plays. Some of it, like Sherrone Moore said this week, that they had some of those maybe dialed up or ready in the playbook for the first 2 games of the year. And it just wasn't quite there for him yet. So really pleased with the progress. I think the things that ail this passing game really don't have anything to do with him. It's 11 drops through 4 games. That's way too high of a number. There was 4 in the opener, 2 in weeks 2 and 3, and then 3 in last week at Nebraska. So that's got to get cleaned up. But when it comes to everything else, he's been, I think, about as good as I thought he would be, and maybe in some respects a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think Chip Lindsey is doing a good job, especially the last couple of weeks, kind of figuring out what works with this offense, what they can do well, putting more responsibility on the shoulders of Bryce Underwood, which I think, to your point, Anthony, he's one of their known commodities right now. You have to do that, especially as the offensive line continues to come together. They made some big strides here recently. You're going to have to make some more as the competition gets a little bit stiffer. Again, Nebraska may have one of the weaker D-lines in the Big Ten at this point, but that was a nice confidence boost. You're going to the bye. You can get a little bit healthier. It was interesting. I was watching yesterday the Blueprint. Devin Gardner and Jake Butt have a podcast together, and they were breaking down the play where Donovan McCulley, throws it to McCulley, a really good throw into double coverage. Probably shouldn't have thrown it. and McCulley almost comes down with it. They go and review it. Of course, it doesn't stand. But just the way, Donovan McCulley's being double teamed. Everyone else is one-on-one, and nobody else could beat their man. Bryce Underwood throws into the double team. Like, things like that when it comes to the receivers. If you're one-on-one and they're going to double Donovan McCulley, someone has to be able to get open. I know Nebraska's got a good secondary, but as Jake Butt and Devin Gardner were saying, like, this is Michigan. This is disrespectful the way they're covering them. So I thought that was really good stuff. People should check that out if they haven't. But the receivers have to start getting open more. I think, to your point, Chris, with Hogan Hansen hopefully getting back at some point, he will help as a tight end there. But otherwise you got to try some other guys out because they've not only have to catch it, but that you can't have defenses just focusing on one guy and not respecting the rest of your offense in the pass game.
Yeah, and that was a big time throw, by the way.
Yes.
Even if Pro Football Focus doesn't think so,
Yeah.
that was the Samaj Morgan throw on the touchdown. There was a touchdown pass to Marlon Klein that was a great throw. That he's had a ton of them, so I don't know what the hell they're looking at. But regardless, that's a great point. They need other guys to step up. But these are things, guys, that we addressed, that we said in the spring, and just like we said about the quarterbacks a year ago. They needed to get better in the wide receiver room and maybe get some different personnel. They needed to be better in the offensive line room. And I think, they're making strides. But again, Central Michigan and Nebraska are not the standards here. I do want to give them credit, though. I think Jake Guarnera in the lineup has really made a difference. Watch him play. He plays with an edge. I don't want to see him come off the field again. He needs to start. No disrespect to Brady Norton or Nathan Afobe, who's gotten better and looks better at left guard than he did at right guard. But I think Gio El Hadi will take that spot back. I think the best five is going to be a combination of El Hadi and Guarnera there at guard. So, but to me, it's the receivers that have been the biggest disappointment, and it's not a surprise. And there have been times when Goodwin has gotten open and he just hasn't caught the ball. So he's got to get two hands on that ball and he's got to catch it. He's got to bring it in. We heard good things about him in the offseason, but if you're a receiver that can't catch but can only run good routes, that doesn't make you a good receiver. You got to be able to catch the ball. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, fellas. And if there's anybody else that might get an opportunity, maybe a Kendrick Bell, right? Maybe he comes in there and gets a shot. And maybe even Peyton O'Leary. I hate to say it, but Peyton hasn't gotten much time. We know that he can catch the ball. I don't think I've ever seen him drop a pass, maybe one. But I know he's got good hands. So at some point, if it's not working, you got to try something else. And I think the same would be said for the punt return as well, with Samaj Morgan back there. That is a debacle at times. And 80th out of 81 that have been in the country that are ranked, I think. And that's just it's not good enough. He's putting the ball on the ground. That whole unit, really, when they're running into each other back there, needs to be improved as well. As Biff Poggi said, as the interim coach filling in for Sherrone Moore, he said it's a bad look. It certainly was when you got a couple of guys running to each other there and one running into your return man.
Well, and part of it too, they said the last couple of weeks that they rededicated themselves to the how, and that's attention to detail. That's, having all of your ducks in a row. And when you drop the football and you run into guys in punt returns and you don't field punt returns cleanly or make bad decisions there, that is a lack of focus. That is a lack of focus and fundamentals and just bad decision making. So I think that this has to be a week for them where they are challenging all of those guys in that wide receiver room to listen, if you take your eye off the ball for a second, and that's both figuratively and literally, we will put someone else out there, because at some point, some of these drops, some of these miscues are going to cost you a football game. And thankfully it hasn't so far. That Oklahoma game was kind of a debacle across the board on offense, but you don't want to get put into a spot where not having the right discipline or focus in a key situation is what costs you a football game. And that's what they need to figure out.
They do. Last thing with Bryce Underwood that came to mind for me were 3 drives. One of them, the 2-minute drive before half against New Mexico, the 2-minute drive before half against Central Michigan, both resulted in touchdowns with just seconds left on the clock, 9 seconds left against CMU. I believe it was 21 or 23 against New Mexico. They had a little bit of time to spare there. And then the long drive in the fourth quarter, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, 16 plays, 77 yards. which put them up 2 possessions and really a drive they had to have. Everyone was thinking it at the same time before that drive. They need to have a long drive finally. And part of it was they were scoring so quickly, so you can't really fault them for it earlier in the game. But they needed a long drive that resulted in points to put them up 2 possessions, and they had it. A lot of that had to do with the ground game on the last one I'm talking about, but there were some big throws by Bryce Underwood. There were 2 key throws on third down. One of them to Samaj, he makes a play, right? Sometimes it's just a simple play, getting the ball out on target enough so that Samaj Morgan can make a play with the football, pick up the first. And then Justice Haynes made a play in the screen game to pick up another third down conversion. But those bode well. The 2-minute, it's stuff that we've seen Michigan struggle with in the past. And you think about the fact that this is a freshman executing in some of those big time moments.
Yeah, and a big time throw on the seam route, remember, to Channing Goodwin?
Channing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another big time throw and you were talking about that 2-minute drive. So the drive at the end of the game there, the 9-minute drive, 8 minutes and 50 seconds or whatever, was a thing of beauty. And that takes some special stuff, man. I don't care if you're a freshman or not, but I really thought the play calling was great on that drive, the way he mixed it up. There was a series before, a 3-and-out where they threw 3 times. The first, and it would have worked if Samaj Morgan had just caught the pass right on first down, but he didn't. And then you have two more passes and you punt. That was right after the 2-play drive in which Jordan Marshall, I believe, scored on the 54-yarder or whatever it was. So I really thought, okay, Chip, I understand, and it's like Sherrone Moore said, the pass might be there, but you know what? You've got a run offense that is really just gashing these guys at times. You got to use some of it, but it wasn't predictable in how he did it. There was a third down run, I think, a 3rd and long, if I'm not mistaken, or a 2nd and long. So I loved the variety, and I love the way they use him and trust him really to run those plays, because if they're in 3rd and long, they know that he can still pick it up. His ability to throw on the run when he's running either way, guys, is ridiculous, right? When he's running left and throwing back right, he's still right on the money. And just a pleasure to watch, a pleasure to cover. Again, we're kind of spoiled here, fellas, and hopefully they go to the portal or whatever next year and get him a few more receivers so that we can see exactly who he is when he's got some elite receivers, because that's going to be damn near unstoppable.
Real quick, the play you're talking about, you're exactly right, Chris. The 3rd and 10 on the Nebraska 39, they not only want to pick up a first down here, you want to get into pretty comfortable field goal range for Dominic Zavada, and Justice Haynes found that kind of lane to the left. He picks up 19. That was huge in a play that probably hasn't got talked about enough, but you're completely right. And they caught them off guard a little bit there.
Yep. Great play coverage. Great play calling. I love what Chip Lindsey does. And it's not just a guess. He understands where the defense is going to be and what they're probably preparing for. I'm sorry, guys, he's a great OC. And a lot of people are going to say, well, look at the Oklahoma game. I don't think that was fully his responsibility, and guys certainly didn't execute either. So, but I think watching him in a game and then watching what he does in the 4th quarter, plays that have set up other plays, is what the way John Jansen describes it, right? They might be expecting one thing, get him to one defense so that you can do something else. I think Chip Lindsey's pretty damn good at that.
Yeah, overall pleased with how it looks as a baseline. Now, there are certain areas where you would hope in October, in early November, and in late November, there are steps forward that are taken. But as far as Underwood goes, could not be more impressed with just how ready he looks to play. There are things that he's got to work on too, but he's just a good Michigan starting quarterback. He's not good for a freshman. He's not good relative to what last year was. He's just good, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow.
All right, let's talk about some more freshmen here in just a second. But before we do, we got to talk about Gametime, our great sponsor. Football season is back. Tailgating season is back. Take the stress out of buying tickets with Gametime. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of the Wolverine podcast. It's the best place to buy tickets. And the Gametime guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Guys, with the slate this weekend, what's the number one game you would want to go to this weekend if you could on Gametime?
Wow. God, I love that Washington trip, guys.
Yeah.
And I would love to see them beat the Buckeyes out there. So that would probably that'd be my pick.
If I could just teleport to Happy Valley instead of driving through the mountains, that would be
True.
fun too.
nice
I
drive,
haven't
though.
been yet.
It's a nice drive.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I do want to see some of these southern schools too, these stadiums that I haven't been to, though.
Well, I was going to say, so we've been to Washington.
Yep.
We've been to Penn State. I want to go to Alabama, Georgia, just because I haven't been to an environment like that. I guess Oklahoma would be somewhat similar. That's not even a traditional SEC team, though. You got Alabama, Georgia. That might be my pick this week. But
Ole Miss, LSU.
Yes.
Bad either. I've heard Ole Miss I heard the scenery there is pretty special.
Same here. That the Grove, the tailgating looks
That's not
incredible.
what I'm talking about, but I get you.
What's that?
So
the scenery, the talent. There's a lot of
talent.
talent down there in the South.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you can go check all that out with Game Time. They have the lowest price guarantee, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. They got event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ON3, that is ON3, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. 20 Michigan freshmen have gotten in. That includes Bryce Underwood. Some of them making impacts. Of course, Underwood is, maybe the biggest impact on the team given his position. Jaden Sanders has been just a revelation at corner, and they couldn't have needed it more, right, with the lack of depth they already had there, and then some of the injuries that they've endured with Zeke Berry going down, hasn't played in 2.5 games. Jair Hill not out there at the end of last game. They're rotating in 3 freshman corners between Sanders, who was already out there, started the last 2 games, Elijah Dotson, and as well as Shamari Earls. And then other guys that have played 4 games are Sanders, Underwood, Nate Marshall at the edge spot, and wide receiver Andrew Marsh. Dotson has played in 3. Benny Patterson, the defensive tackles, played in 3. He's on quite a few special teams units, so could see him burn his red shirt. Shamari Earls has played in the last 2 and was hurt in the first 2, so he probably burns his red shirt at some point. But you're seeing that this is a pretty talented freshman class, and again, they could not have needed it more out of that cornerback spot. All 3 of those guys look pretty promising.
Sanders looks the most promising, and he was a stud. I can't believe how good he's been, frankly. And he's going to have a case to play even more, even when these other guys are healthy, because that's how good he's been. So, you need Zeke Berry back there. He's a veteran. He can play a bunch of different positions, and it gives you the opportunity to be a little bit more versatile back there, because Zeke Berry can do a lot of different things. And getting Rod Moore back there is going to help a ton too when he's healthy. 21 plays, I believe he played, fellas, if I'm not mistaken, at Nebraska. But Jaden Sanders is the one that I really love, and then Nate Marshall's pass rush ability has been ridiculous. That's a really, really good class. And when it was Biff Poggi who said, this is a really young football team, and they really are, guys. There's a lot of good young talent on there, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is the year you got to do it with that defense." And I'm like, not necessarily. I get it that you're going to lose really good players, Jayshon Barham and Ernest Hausman, who's actually he needs to step it up a little bit in some areas. But you've got guys like Cole Sullivan out there who are just waiting to break out. He's going to be a star. Nate Marshall's going to be a star. Jaden Sanders is going to be a star. So it's really been fun. Andrew Babalola on the offensive line has been hurt. He's going to be a star. So what a class. And now again, just got to get a couple of these other guys to step up. We've got to get a couple of receivers here, and you got to fill in with the portal too at times a little bit better than they have. When it was just a piece or 2 that you needed, like Oluwatimi or Drake Nugent at center, and you went out and got the best, right? Then you still got to do that. They still got to go get pieces. They could have had Skylar Bell. They were close to it anyway. Receiver out of UConn. That could have made a difference on this team. So I think that they are preparing guys. I think that they understand what they have here the next 2 years. I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward. But to your point about the freshmen, what a fantastic start for these guys.
That's been incredibly encouraging. It reminds me a lot of that 2021 class that JJ McCarthy was a part of, and Donovan Edwards and all of those guys. And, there were 24 commits in that group. History would tend to tell you that probably half of them will pan out and finish their careers here. Right now, just as a baseline, it looks like they've got a group that could wind up being more than that. And guys that are playing consequential snaps too. I think Jaden Sanders would be the guy that, outside of, because you have to qualify it, it's a non-Bryce Underwood designation. Outside of him, I think that Sanders has impressed me the most. Andrew Marsh, we talk about guys that probably need more opportunities to play at wide receiver. He would be at the top of that list for me. I think you've got some good offensive line pieces in that group. Nate Marshall, I think is freaky and will be very good. Maybe as soon as this year, as they continue to try to find a little more consistent disruption there at the edge spots. But overall, pretty pleased with it. Scroll down the list. Jasper Parker was a guy that was a bit of an under the radar running back, and he looks like he can play a little bit. So
he looks like a lot of Haskins.
He does. And that's, you have that guy now. Next year you'll have Savion Hyder, and I assume you'll have one of Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes if Haynes, were to go to the NFL. Elijah Dotson has good ball skills. I think Ty Haywood's going to be a good player in time. So there are guys on here that we haven't necessarily even seen play a ton yet that I think are going to be foundational pieces for what this next iteration of the program looks like. So it's been incredibly encouraging, obviously headlined by your freshman quarterback, but when you have a game on Saturday where you're playing a 5-star quarterback on the other sideline who throws for over 300 yards and you're closing out that game with a bunch of freshmen on the field. Did Nebraska go down and score a touchdown? Sure. But the fact that those guys are out there and playable is incredibly encouraging.
It's good experience, and it's good experience too that 20 of them got in the Central Michigan game as well. It'd always be kind of that game that they look back at as their first taste of playing time. So a really good start, I think, from this freshman class. Of course, Underwood boosts them up a little bit, but there are some others that we mentioned that are making some impacts, and you can see the future is bright with some of those guys, a lot of them. So last thing on Michigan football, what needs to get better coming out of the bye, whether it's something that's worked on during the bye. I mean, you're going to work on everything, right? You're going to focus on some areas, but what do you think in this next stretch of games, really in the middle of the season before their next bye, need to improve, considering that you're going to play some tough opponents coming up at USC, Washington comes to town. You're going to go to Michigan State at the end of October. What needs to get better for this Michigan football team to get through that middle of the season?
Zone coverage and pass defense. These guys are leaving way too many holes, and that's got to be rectified, fellas. You're going to have good passers. That Aiden Childs comes to mind, has really improved. USC obviously is going to have a great passing offense, so that's got to be picked up. Punting game on both sides, return and punting. That should never be the case at a place like Michigan. Come on, fellas, be better. Special teams as a whole, other than Dominic Zavada, and Beckham Sunderland's been really doing a nice job with his kickoffs. Wide receivers obviously catching the ball, and still need more consistency from the offensive line. They're doing a great job moving the pocket in terms of giving Bryce Underwood more time to throw. So that's one of the other things that come to mind as well.
Yeah, a couple things I'd like to see is I want to see wide receivers catch the football. I want to see the pass catchers catch the football, because I think it sounds so simple, but it's the next step in this offense being a little more dangerous to defend, and Bryce Underwood being a little more dangerous to game plan against. So want to see that. I'd love to get even if you're not straight up benching the top 3 that you have out there, which I don't think they're going to. We'd love to see some guys get a little more extended run. On defense, like you said, I mean, the pass defense is right up there. I want to see Derek Moore and TJ Guy play a little better. Now, everyone played well on Saturday, but I don't think you move. Well, part of the reason you move Jay Sean Barham down to the edge is so you have your best 11 on the field. He's one of them, obviously. Cole Sullivan is one of them. I'd love to see his role expand a little bit, but I want to see this defensive line do what they did Saturday. Maybe not to the tune of 36 pressures, because most offensive lines on the other team are not going to let that happen, but just want to see a little more consistent disruption. And Saturday felt like, what's the old term about once one olive pops out of the jar, the rest of them fall out. That's what that felt like on Saturday. Now I want to see what's in the middle, like what's a middle performance for them.
Yeah, I don't know how old of a term that is, but I know Jim Harbaugh uses it all the time.
Well, he was here for 10 years, and it feels like it's been 20. So
my guess is that you got it from Jack.
Oh, that's a pretty good guess, I would say. Yeah. No, I think you guys hit on everything. I'll just say I want to see just steady improvement from the offensive line as they play tougher defensive fronts. Not exactly sure how good the Wisconsin defensive front is. Not exactly sure how good the USC defensive front is, but both of them statistically so far, and they haven't been tested all that much, but statistically very good against the run. Washington, for as much as their defense has struggled, and it has under Ryan Walters there, they're good against the run statistically as well. We'll learn more about them, as you mentioned at the top, CB, with the competition stepping up. Really, this weekend in college football, it feels like you're now into conference play pretty much everywhere, and we'll see that. But will they be able to continue to just put up big performances on the ground? You don't need 286 or over 300 every single week, but you have to be productive. You got to pick it up in the short yardage situations. You got to be good in the red zone where you have to run the football down there, where Michigan has lived in having success over the last several years in those big moments. Can they do that here? They're way ahead of where they were a year ago, pretty much in every area or a lot of areas. You think of last September. I don't think they win that football game at Nebraska. Last October, I don't think they win the game they had last weekend against Nebraska. They were losing to Illinois and Washington last October. And then in November, I believe right when the calendar turned, you lose at Indiana because you had no offense. They're ahead in a lot of ways from where they were a year ago, but that's not the standard. Just got to keep improving and make sure that where you are right now is nowhere near where you'll be at the end of the season. And the offensive line is kind of the biggest group I'm looking at for that. And on that note, kind of, you have a couple maybe good run defenses we'll see statistically coming up. My bold prediction in our magazine that came out this week was that Bryce Underwood will have his first 300-plus yard passing game in the next two. Am I crazy, or what do you guys think about that?
No, I think it's fair. It'd help if these guys would catch the ball. I think he'll put him in position to have 300. So, but
caveat there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, how many more yards would he have passing, and how many more touchdowns if these guys could just hold on to the ball? So,
True.
But I think that's definitely a possibility. I don't think USC's run defense is that good. I think that they are a product of their schedule so far.
Agree. Yeah.
So I think they're going to run the ball. I think that might be a track meet out there, guys. That's a tough one to win. Everybody gets mad at me for saying it, but if you look at the numbers, even 89 was the last time they won a road game on the coast. That was against an average UCLA team, and they needed a miracle to get that one. It's just tough to go across time zones against a talented team. And I understand that there'll be a lot of Michigan fans there, but it's going to be tough. So, but regardless, I like the direction they are going, and I do think that. I wouldn't surprise me at all. Wisconsin's got a pretty stiff run defense, so but they can be thrown on, as we've seen, and even by a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
I want to propose a new stat because I believe this is official stat in Michigan's book when we are on stat broadcast every Saturday. There's sack adjusted rush yards. I think we should have drop adjusted pass yards for Bryce Underwood, and then you'll hit your prediction. So I guess the last thing I would.
Are we projecting yards after the catch, and how are we doing this?
It's whatever I want it to be, honestly. I made up the stat, so
I like it.
Whatever fits my agenda. I think we sort of have hit on it. Clayton, you certainly hit on it with steady improvement. They were 3-1 after 4 games last year, and then things stagnated in October and really into that early part of November. That's what I'd like to see them avoid, is to just keep building towards something. I don't want them to lose a game they're not supposed to, and they go into a second bye week, and we hear about, it's about the how again, or it's buy-in week. Just keep building on it and get better, and don't let it stagnate. Don't get the big head, because they take care of business. This can be a playoff team in a year that feels somewhat wide open.
True or false? This team would have beaten Illinois, Indiana, and Washington last year with Bryce Underwood at quarterback.
True. It's absolutely true.
I think it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go with true.
That's what they were missing, right? Late in the Indiana game, they get the ball again at time after time with good field position in that second half, and they did nothing on offense. The Illinois game was there for the taking. Illinois had no offense in that game, and then what was the other one? Washington, the same thing. Turnovers at the end. So 100%.
Yep.
100%. So they're positioned well with number 19 behind center for sure. Now go take advantage of those opportunities. Take advantage of not playing Oregon, Penn State, Indiana in the regular season here. But still some tough games coming up. Let's hit on Michigan basketball recruiting. 2 new commits in the last week. One of them out of nowhere on Wednesday night. Now it's a 3-man class. You already had Marcus Muller, the Danish big man, a center, I think 7'2". Power forward Quinn Costello, top 30 prospect, comes in last week. And then an under-the-radar, unranked wing, Malachi Brown out of Knoxville, Tennessee, joins the fold last night. I guess let's start with Quinn Costello. The Newman School in Boston is where he hails from, 6'10", 195 pounds. Number 28 overall prospect on Rivals. Number 1 player in Massachusetts. He's number 44 overall player in the country on the Rivals industry ranking, and visited for the CMU game 3 days later, pulls the trigger, becomes a commit. And when you watch his highlights, great shooter, high release, quick release. He's becoming a good offensive rebounder, he says, and can put the ball on the floor a little bit. This feels like a really exciting land. I know Michigan State was in on him and some others, but he chooses the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, Michigan State wanted him badly, contrary to what a few of their fans have said elsewhere and maybe some of their writers. So this kid is he's a shooter, but he's tougher than his frame indicates, I think, and you're going to see that. He's got to get stronger before he really plays a major role, but this really kind of fulfills the shooting wishes, right, that these coaches have. Like, okay, this guy, we need more shooters on this team. He's going to be that from his position, which is fantastic. Love that. Reminds you of Mo Wagner, right, a little bit. So in terms of a big guy that can shoot the ball. So love that. I think it's a great land. We've known for a while that he was leaning towards Michigan. And there was a lot of negative recruiting guys going on from some Rivals, but that certainly did not help their cause. Quinn Costello loves Dusty May, loved this program, and loves the coaching staff. So I think he'll be a great fit here.
Yeah, it's a good ad. He fills, again, I'm saying just from an archetype standpoint, fills what they had hoped Sam Walters would be for them last year, bringing him in out of the transfer portal, a tall guy, a guy with a high release, a quick release. Obviously, anytime you're his age, you're going to want to come into the program and put some good weight on. But it's a Dusty May, it's a vintage Dusty May fit for a stretch forward. So excited to see what he brings to the table. He's a top 40, top 50 type of guy.
Top 30.
Yeah. Rivals has him in the top 30. So number 28 overall. So yeah, like the addition. It fits what they want to do with guys of his of archetype, and should be fun to watch him develop.
And then the surprise, and everyone's gonna look back in 3-4 years and be like, I know where I was when Malachi Brown committed. I was playing pickleball last night. You get a late night commitment on a bye week, but Malachi Brown, 6'5", 196 pounds, out of Knoxville Catholic in Tennessee. Unranked. I believe we had to create a profile for him on Rivals last night. He has a big summer on the Adidas circuit, kind of broke out at the Adidas All-America camp recently in California. And apparently there's kind of a lot of buzz behind the scenes on what this kid was doing, how he improved, what kind of athlete he is. But everyone kind of kept him on the down low. And then last Tuesday night, Joe Pasternak, the head coach at UC Santa Barbara, calls him. They had never spoken before. He offered him a scholarship. Joe Pasternak just happens to also be one of Dusty May's best friends. They managed together at Indiana. The next morning at 7 a.m, there comes Dusty May walking into Knoxville Catholic's open gym, and apparently everyone was like, holy crap, here's Dusty May, one of the best coaches in the country coming in here. And after the open gym, he saw everything he needed to see that he had heard about in person. He offers him a scholarship. Again, he had some D2 offers. He had just the UC Santa Barbara offer about 12 hours before, but now he's a Wolverine. Great defender. Dusty, I guess, has been telling him he's going to fill the connector role for Michigan. Is a good shooter, is a really good athlete, can take it to the rim, is a lefty. Kind of reminds me when you hear him described talking to his coach, like a Reuben Jones, maybe a little bit different position, more of a 3 type, but it's one of these under the radar Dusty May ads. And like, if you're a Dusty guy, if you trust him, a lot of Michigan fans do, you're kind of okay with a take like this rather than if it was a different coach doing this.
Yeah, I agree. And how many scholarships now, Clay?
That's 2 D1.
I know. How many total do you get?
Oh, you get 15 now. Yes.
Right. So he's 15, right? If it's a 13-man roster, I'm not sure you take him. But if he's number 15, now that you got 15, you can take some chances on guys like this. I think Marcus Moeller is a similar type of thing, right? That you're trusting that this is a guy that's going to develop. And you have to have some of those too. You can't just live and die by the portal and or take the 5 stars and hope that they stick around for more than a year. You need these guys in the program like the Will Cheddars as well, right? That are going to be leaders and captains and evolve into players to keep the culture going. And I think this is one of those. So I trust Dusty May implicitly, and I have no question that he has a role in mind for this kid down the line. It'll be a few years, but I'm not questioning anything he does when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, having the 2 extra scholarships now sort of reminds me of the NBA draft, where you hear the teams always take these international guys and they call them draft and stash, where you just kind of check in on them after a couple of years. And this is one of those type of additions. And we've heard Dustin May talk before about how, in order to have a championship caliber of program, you have to have those guys who have kind of been there since day one and know what the standard is and work themselves into a role player. Hey, who knows? He could pop and be a foundational player. That's I don't even call it a risk that you take. That's just the range of outcomes when you take on some of these under the radar guys. So a lot to still learn about him. Again, when I was writing the story last night, we didn't have a profile on him. I couldn't find a scouting report on him anywhere. So I'm literally just flying blind here. But if Dusty May shows up at an open gym and offers a guy immediately, we've seen how he operates with the conviction he does before. So they see something in him, and we'll see what happens a couple of years down the road.
Well, it speaks to, you can't say it enough, how connected Dusty May is in the basketball world as well, because apparently at this Adidas All-American camp, there are all sorts of NBA scouts there as well. And Malachi Brown caught their eye. And I guess one scout came up to him and a really high-level kid, and he asked them both, kind of grouping them together, where are you going to sign with in November? And one of them said a high major school. And Malachi kind of mumbled under his breath, like, I'm maybe like a D2 school or whatever. And the guy was like, what are you talking about? You're not going – he's like, I thought you'd be going to Indiana or Carolina or somewhere like that. And I don't know this for sure, but apparently one of these scouts was kind of helped him out and put in some calls in to others for him. And I would imagine that one of them could have been Dusty May or someone Dusty May knows. And they're able to get in on a guy like this where he makes this covert trip to Knoxville, Tennessee, and ends up with a quote-unquote hidden gem. So this is just the latest in these finds for Dusty May, whether it's internationally or around the country. We'll see how it turns out, of course. But I think the trust level from the Michigan fan base is at an all-time high with recruiting. I had the trust with Beeline too. You take a Spike Albrecht, it's just whatever he wants. I pretty much, and of course it worked out, right? Whatever he wants, I'm on board with. Chris, are they going to add to this class? What are your thoughts on these?
So only 1 or 2 more. We had an article on that today because you don't know who's going to be here. You know who's not going to be here, right? Yaxel Underwood, Will Cheddar, Namari Burnett, Roddy Gale. So there will be a couple more. It wouldn't surprise me if these are late period guys that maybe a couple that are high profile but are waiting until the spring. But and then there's the portal as well. So I think they can be a little bit pickier now. But there is not an unlimited stash of funds here either, right? When people were talking about Anthony Thompson, a 5-star, right? Luca Foster, from what we understand, Luca Foster would probably have to take a little less to come here now since they signed Costello. I don't expect him to do that. So those are 2 guys I expect that are at least leaning other places. So, but yeah, they're going to fill the roster, and there will be some other guys that pop up late. Look at Malachi, man. He came out of nowhere. We didn't even know about him. So that's Dusty May for you. And again, he's earned that trust.
Yeah. And to your point there on the funds, there's some value in taking a guy that really doesn't cost you anything either. Because if he popped in a year or two and you have to grab this guy to the portal, you may have to pay $1 million a year for him. Right. When right now it's free, and then you get a hometown discount when he does pop or whatever it is. So same thing could be said about Ricky Liburd last cycle, a couple of guys this cycle. So really interesting to follow, really fun to follow, and just excited. We'll have Michigan Basketball Media Day at Chrysler next Monday, or Tuesday, sorry, and we'll get to watch practice, talk to all the players, assistant coaches. So stay tuned for that. Let's get to our picks here for Week 5 in college football. They're brought to you by BetMGM. The Wolverine is teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to a $1,500 bonus bet if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. It pleases me to start out with our standings and say that our Anthony Broom went 4-0 last week. As we said, a lot of football left, and is a tip of the cap there from Anthony. He sits at 7-12, but climbing red hot. Chris and I are at 11-8. We were both 3-1 last week, so a great week for the podcast.
Which one did I get wrong?
Which ones did you get right?
I got all of them right.
I thought you were 3-1.
No, I was 4-0. Anthony, I had this discussion up in the press box, as a matter of fact, at Nebraska. I'm going to have to get my lawyer on this, apparently, because
I don't recall.
Yeah, you do too. We'll have to talk about it.
We all had Oklahoma, Auburn right.
Yep.
You had Indiana right over Illinois.
Yep.
We all had Miami right, and you had Michigan State covering against USC.
And they did.
Oh, they did. Okay, yeah, you're right.
See, this is bullshit. This is bullshit.
So then Anthony's 3-1.
Yeah, you'll be hearing from my attorney. Okay, so there you go, Anthony. Yep, that's okay.
Well, you'll both be hearing from my attorneys, and Clayton gave me false information before
there are some hanging chads. Yeah,
you can look it up too.
Yeah, Anthony's
okay. So I screwed it up. So Anthony went 3-1, Chris 4-0, me at 2-2 this week. So there you have it. I'm sitting at 10-9. Chris is 12-7. Anthony, you're at 6-13. That is the official standings. Does that still give you pleasure to say that, Clay? That he went 3-1? Absolutely. Absolutely. He was down in the dumps last week.
I know. I'm proud of you, Anthony.
Water always finds its level.
True. Yep.
It does. Well, let's get into this week's picks that may or may not be calculated correctly after the weekend. And we will start with USC at Illinois. This game noon on Fox. USC is a 6.5-point favorite. Over under is 60.5. Chris, start us off.
That's a tough one, guys. When you're going the other way, you're going through time zones. So you have to play at noon. And I think USC is that much better a team than Illinois? I kind of do. At the same time, I think they're fraudulent in some areas. So I am going to go with USC. I don't feel great about it.
I'm going to go with Illinois. I think Illinois is going to win the football game. I'm a believer in the up-down theory. I don't think they are a 53-point loss to Illinois bad. Or Indiana bad. I think that has more to do with the fact that Kurt Signetti is a serial killer than anything else. So
on the field, metaphor, folks.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I'm going to go with Illinois. This is bold, but I think they're going to win the football game.
This is impossible to pick because of the travel factor and the fact that our eyeballs just saw them lose by 53 or whatever it was. But I do have USC. I just trust them a little bit more, and Illinois cannot protect Luke Altmaier for the life of them. So I'm going to go with USC.
Yep.
Ohio State at Washington.
Yep.
Ohio State 8-point favorite. Over under is 52.5. This game 3:30 on CBS as part of an elite 3:30 slate. I will go first here, and I'll take the points. Sailgating, Husky Stadium, 22-game home win streak. It's the second longest active home win streak in the country behind Georgia at 32 games. I don't know that they win. I don't know that that streak continues, but I think they cover the 8 points.
That's exactly where I am. I like Jed Fish to keep it close. I think it'll be a 3 or 4 point game, either a 3 or 4 point game. But I do think that Washington covers. Ohio State might win, but Washington will cover.
I think Washington will cover as well.
That's kind of scary. We're all on Washington against Ohio State. But
maybe it's wishful thinking, guys. Maybe we just, but at the same time, I mean, I think Ohio State's defense is pretty tough. But who's Ohio State played really and really impressed you against yet? Nobody.
Texas,
so,
but
yeah, but that's Texas didn't look worth a shit. Let's be honest; they look terrible.
I'll say this about Washington. I think that we'll see how the season plays out. Yep. There's a non-zero chance they have the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in the league. Just those 3 players. So I'm banking on them this week.
Also at 3:30, LSU at Ole Miss. Ole Miss 1.5 point favorite. Over under is 55.5. This game on ABC. So you got the 2 screens going. They're playing for the Magnolia Bowl trophy, which I didn't know existed until really about an hour ago. Trinidad Chambliss reportedly going to start for Ole Miss once again. Their backup Ferris State transfer who has looked pretty good so far this year. I'm going to go with my national champ pick, though, LSU to win on the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think LSU gets it done. And I think that, that's where I am.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss here. I got to be a little bit different. I think the former Ferris State quarterback will give the former Grand Valley State head coach some headaches on Saturday.
And Ole Miss, to your pick, that could back it up. I think 30-3 under Lane Kiffin at home over the last 3 years. 16-1 last 2 years. They beat Georgia at home last season, so they're capable in some of those home games. They're going to lay an egg down the line somewhere, but they can rise to the occasion. 2 more. The night slate, Oregon at Penn State. Penn State's a 3.5 point favorite. Over-under is 51.5. 7:30 on NBC. Can James Franklin get it done? Penn State hasn't beaten a top 10 team since the 2016 Big Ten championship game. They were fortunate to get to that game in general. Anthony, start us off on this one.
I think Penn State's going to win the game. I really do. I think the whiteout, they're actually it's going to be a night game, which is something that the new TV network setup doesn't always allow for with these big games, but there are just so many of them this weekend. I think Penn State's going to get that win. I think it's going to be a bit of a statement. I think Oregon is very good, but I do think that this Penn State team will be ready.
I don't trust Dante Moore, but I don't think Oregon loses by more than 3. So if they lose, in fact, I think they could win this football game. I'm going to take Oregon.
Yeah, and this is a huge test for both quarterbacks because Dante Moore's looked better this year than Drew Aller has, but home game, Dante Moore on the road. Dante Moore slow start against Northwestern. Drew Aller hasn't looked good. He didn't even look good in the beginning of the game against Villanova. That said, I'm going whiteout. I'm going Penn State. I think they get this one. I don't think they can beat Ohio State or Michigan right now, but I think that they can beat Oregon coming all the way across the country. Last one, Alabama at Georgia. Georgia is a 3-point favorite. Over-under is 52.5, 7:30 on ABC. Like we said, Georgia's won 32 straight home games. Kirby Smart's 1-6 against Alabama, but he's only 0-1 against Kalen DeBoer. That's mostly a Saban stat. So give me the Georgia Bulldogs at home.
For all the reasons you just said, I agree 100%.
I'm going with Georgia as well. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, though.
Yeah, I'm excited for this entire slate.
Can't wait.
Enjoy the bye week. Enjoy the Ryder Cup. Go USA, everybody. And we will see you on Monday. Make sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. And head to thewolverine.com. As always, you can get 2 months of premium access for just $1 if you use the promo code UM1. And we'll see everyone next time.